won't be giving no favors, I'm trying to stack for the fam. Keep good with my neighbors, stay the fuck from these haters, and keep my mom on my data. I'm reaching out for the stars, I always have it, ain't work. Bunch of sweetness around me, it's like they brought me dessert. But I don't want no diabetes, see I be focused alert. Sirens on like an ambulance, move let me work. I see the struggle increase, it's now cool to be famous. I stay clean, yet I mean on the scene, feel like a king. Or the champ in the ring at the range, banging them things. Doing me by myself, like there's nobody else. I'm up this bitch top shelf, going for top shelf wealth. I'm here but gone like stealth, because somebody gon' tell. I know they is, cause these niggas snitching like easy as hell. If I fall in the struggle, then I guess I just fell. Whether I get it with my homes or I'm getting it alone, either way it's gon' stack. That's the type of shit I'm on, it's a hustle. It's a hustle. Welcome to the one no big nasty blade or a dirty nickel chrome. Either way I'm going home, that's the type of shit I'm on. It's a hustle. It's a hustle. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for choosing taking time out of your day to join us here on the Human Experience. Capassion in action. Now, for those of you who may not have heard of what the human experience is and what it is that we do around these pots, let me explain you a little something. The human experience is where I, Himyo, ask our guests 7 questions that will allow them to compassionately express themselves so that you, the viewer, the audience, the listener, is able to experience the compassion that resides within said person. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not saying compassion, I am saying capassion. And there's a very specific reason as to why I'm saying capassion. And I'll let you know what that reason is. See, so when we talk about the ka, what we are talking about is the vital life force and energy that resides within human existence. Or actually, it doesn't even have to be human existence, in just existence of life, right? That's what ka stands for. And then when we talk about passion, passion is a deep-seated feeling or emotion that wells up within inside someone. So when we put those two together, what we are talking about is the vital life force that allows someone to deeply express that which they have within them. And so that is what we are up to on the human experience, compassion in action. And so what has my human experience been today? I would say that actually my day started off really well. I had the great fortune of actually speaking to my daughter this morning. She was jovial, she was playing around, and she was jumping up and down, and she was shaking her little booty. I don't really know how I feel about that, but you know, it is what it is. Kids play. She was wiggling and jiggling and doing her thing, and she was just happy to be doing it. And so I was just ingratiated with that, and that we were able to have a wonderful conversation, and she was in a playful and joyful mood. And she actually spoke a whole lot. So I'm really happy about that. And then I got to go help out the homie who is setting up Solistic Foods over at the Culver City Farmers Market. So I went to help him set up and get his food vendoring on of some delicious, wholesome vegan food and bowls that he sells. And so, you know, that was what that was. There was a little hiccup when I got there, and the people, you know, when I first walked into that environment, they were just coming at me like, no, you can't be in here, you can't be in here. I'm like, yo, I'm coming to help somebody. And anyway, I don't want to go through the whole litany of how that transpired, but just know that they were a little aggressive, and so I didn't want to be overly aggressive back to them, but I did have to, I didn't want to mess it up for the homie, so I just kindly removed myself until he got there, so that I didn't have to get totally out of character. And then I had therapy, which was very gracious, because there's a lot of things transpiring in my life at this particular moment, and there's a lot of stress that I'm under. I do have to make a move by the end of May, and I'm going through a dissolution of a relationship and all of this great stuff. Well, I don't know about great, but it's good. I think it'll all work out for the betterment of all parties involved. And so after therapy, I was excited because I get to be here with you all and do this human experience. And not only most of the people that I have interviewed or had the great fortune of interviewing on the human experience have been individuals that I've have some relatability to and know, maybe for at least a good amount of time, or know of them, or they know of me for an extended period of time. This one is a little different, and it's a little different because last week I had the fortune of being a part of a cast in a short that was written by the individual that we are about to interview today here on the Human Experience. And the way that that opportunity came about was just very fortuitous and very much in alignment. When I know, as long my only job is to continue making causes for the betterment of myself and all those that I have the great fortune of encountering. And so, as a result of that, I got the opportunity to act, and that's not even something that I'm currently even particularly pursuing. It is what I moved to California to do, but I realized that I am not in love with acting. Ooh, that's a deep thought. Anyway, so I'm not in love with acting to be going through the rigmarole that one must go through in order to make it in that industry. And the great thing about what just transpired is that this is a role that came to me. I didn't have to go out and seek it. So just by being in the right places and spaces and showing up the way that I do in those places, I had this opportunity that was presented to me. And so I got to have a little role in this short, and through that, a wonderful conversation with the writer. And the individual that I am speaking of, her name is Lia Martin, and she is a black comedian, blogger, and television writer who has returned to the entertainment industry after supporting her special needs son in school. And as a young executive, she ran What's Up Productions through a deal at HBO Independent Productions for comedian Martin Lawrence. For comedian Martin Lawrence in Bessie Sharkey's Adweek article, "What's Up, Docs?" She was named one of the top TV executives under 30. Having developed several projects for Lawrence, she was also a participant in Warner Brothers' writing program, and she went on to create the reality pilot that was directed by Eric Dean Seaton. But after marrying her husband, she decided to focus on her family. And now, years later, upon diving back into writing, Leah was asked to help on a web series, Funny Married Stuff, and a web series that has placed in several festivals. She then penned her pilot, Finding Einstein, which is loosely based on the life with her son. Now, this led to her current position on the sitcom Family Reunion, streamed on Netflix. So I would like to introduce to the Human Experience, Miss Lia Martin. Welcome, 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 Miss Martin. Welcome to the Human Experience. How are you doing today, Miss Lia?
Very well. Love the intro.
Oh man, there were some hiccups in there, but we got through it. We got through it. So Miss Martin, based upon all that you have been through and been going on, and that has been transpiring in your life, one of the things that we like to do here and on the Human Experience is we like to give people their flowers while they are still alive and well and in front of us. So if you are not used to people clapping for you, let me just give you one of these. Yes, 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 yes. And not only do we like to just, clap for those one time, but we like to do it, let's do it one more time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And actually, you know, three times is a charm. So let's give you that. Yes, yes, yes. So that way it permeates down deep into your pores, your soul, into your DNA. So that way you are used to clapping for yourself, just in case others aren't doing it for you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. So, Miss Leah, the I read your bio. Yes, you have been writing, and yes, you took some time off to become a mother and a wife and play the role, a traditional role that society says one must do. But there's also a lot more that you have done in that time, of taking a break from writing. So could you go into a little bit more about what it was that you did while you took your writing hiatus?
Yes, a number of things. So I found myself initially when I met my husband, he was in law school. He decided he wanted to go into practice for himself. And so by the time he graduated from law school and we got married, he'd set up the practice. I actually worked for him for a smidgen of time. Not the easiest situation. um, I did some marketing and I did some administrative work. And then I realized this probably isn't good for our long-term goals as a relationship.
Mhm.
And so I ended up working in the nonprofit arena for a while. I helped a friend set up her nonprofit, and around that time, we adopted our son. And it's funny how you mentioned the traditional role. Like, I don't consider myself to be that type of person. But when our son was born, it kind of shifted everything for me.
Mhm.
Like, I know there are, the women who do it all, the career, the this, the that. For me, I had to put most of my energy into my family. And so I would do my other things like on the side. So my first priority was making sure he was good. And then I would couple that and I would find ways to be creative. Since he was adopted, like for example, I wrote a book about adoption just for him. So I would just find little things to do that kind of filled my that creative aspect. Even the reality show that Eric and I did, it was about women in finance. So I would just find ways that they weren't necessarily industry standard or of a level of creativity, because in the industry, like if you're not working on a major network or what have you, then it's not you're not doing it.
Mhm.
But as far as my creative outlet, I still was able to do that. I still found ways to feed that, and then I just continued doing more nonprofit work because that is something that's also important to me.
Mm. And so, it's interesting that you mentioned adoption. So, before I ventured into entertainment, because my background is in social work, and so when two of the jobs that I had, one first was in doing foster home approvals for Catholic charities, and then I transitioned into working for the state of New Jersey, getting children adopted. And then when we go even further back, my family, also I'm the youngest of 11, and we wound up adopting two other children into our family. So it's like I've been around, basically that world, since, shit, I guess, since inception, honestly, because that's just what my life has been drawn to. So it's interesting to hear you talk about, um, you and your husband, adopting a child, and like how that led you into, the world of advocacy and things of that nature. What was it? I guess this is, yeah. So what was it about choosing, or what was it that allowed you to choose to want to adopt?
So for some reason, since I was a young child, I always wanted to adopt.
Mm.
And as I got older, I specifically wanted to adopt a Black male. I had I realized that they are the sort of last to, at least in California, like the last quote unquote to be adopted. They have the most problems being placed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just felt like I could just, if we could take a child, that kind of savior complex from foster care and give them a home, and it'll just be easy, and then I don't have to go through pregnancy. Like I this in my head, it was, this is going to be so easy, which is like so insane. But I was like, we'll change his life. We'll be the saviors, kind of thing. I think I was coming at it from that perspective of like, we're educated, we're middle class, we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as you know, having siblings, all the personalities and variants in humans, you really don't know until you meet that person. And so he came into our home at 2 days old. So typical baby, does what babies do. A little tiring, but all right. It wasn't until decided to go back to work and a more like 9 to 5 situation. And I put him in preschool that I realized, okay, what I now know is he learns differently.
Mm-hmm.
He moves in the world differently. He's going to need some special things that I can't just place him anywhere. And so that's where that role, like you mentioned, to advocacy, that's where that began. Because at that point, it's funny when you go through training, they tell you to love the child as if they'll be there forever, because you don't know when you're a foster parent if you're in fact going to be able to adopt the child. But I'm like, I don't know what else to deal with. I mean, you give me a baby, I'm gonna love the baby. So at that point, his adoption hadn't been finalized, but in my mind, this is my kid. And I saw the ways in which in education they expect children to act the exact same way, no matter who they are as people.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't work for my child. And that began that journey of like, what does work for him? Because the adults around him are not doing what works for him. And I'm not going to blame him for their failure to see who he is. You see?
Yeah, see, I find that to be very interesting, right? Because, um, you, as me being a father now, right? It just like you think that you're, you think that you have so much, or that you're gonna impart so much into this child, but we, don't- but the actual true dynamic of that relationship is they give so much to you, and provide you with such an opportunity to even learn even more about yourself, right? So it's like it becomes a very equitable relationship, should you choose to see it in that manner, because there's so much that they give to you, and teach you, right, about who you are, and what you are, and what you think you, when the rubber hits the road, is like, oh no, this is how I have to handle this situation. All that stuff you thought that you was going to do turns out to be sometimes very different than what is actually being done. And that actually is a great segue into the first question that I have for you, Miss Leah. And that question is, what is it that you trust more, your heart or your brain?
Interesting question. It's actually situational for me, but I would say most often it is my heart. I feel like discernment is something that you develop over time. And as a woman of a certain age, I think it's important to rely more heavily on my instincts. They usually don't fail me.
Mm,
Sometimes when I think too much, for me, I think myself out of opportunities.
mm,
I think myself out of relationships. Um, I think myself out of chances to grow. For when I operate from a heart space and from an instinctual space, then that is where I usually see the most benefit for myself, and then the other party as well.
mm. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's interesting, right? Because basically, we talk all this stuff about, the our intellect and our brains and how they work and operate. When in actuality, our brains are really there to just keep us safe, right? And when we think about, like, so as you were just alluding to, a lot of times, those opportunities that may have been present that were resonating with you through that heart space, your brain space was like, yeah, no, that's gonna require us to do this and that and work on this and that, and it's just not comfortable, and it's not our safe place. So the brain starts to work to do everything to keep you safe and keep you comfortable, as allowing instead of allowing you to grow, right, in this human experience. So I totally get you when you say that, and it's like, so in that, let's bring it back to the adoption thing, right? So in that space and place, that it seems like, um, when you picked your son, right, or if your son picked you, actually,
Yeah.
when y'all picked one another, um, what was the dynamic that was happening between that heart space and that brain space in that moment, that then just said, all right, let me get out of the way to finally make you, or help you make that choice?
So, interestingly enough, I was thinking, and when you talk about the brain space, when they give you the information and the training and how long it's going to take, I thought I was going to have a lot of time to prepare. I was told that, because I asked for a certain type of child, I wanted a male, I wanted a newborn, I had these requirements. It's going to take, 1 to 2 years or something of that nature. And so I was on vacation at the time that I received the call that a 2-day old baby boy was available. And my husband called and was like, I have to go pick up our baby. And I was in New York. And I was like, he don't know how to take care of a baby. So I knew that I had to get home, and I was, my heart racing, pumping, and all that stuff. But I also was like, shoot, I don't have anything. Like I was slowly buying like a little, a crib here, a diaper here. I did not have things, but I have such a dope village that by the time I got home, there was just stuff in my house. I had a post baby shower, because nobody knew this baby was coming. So it
Mhm.
was just stuff at my house. My mother-in-law and father-in-law had come to literally show my husband how to hold the baby and things so he could get through the night and until I got in town. And the moment I saw him, I just did, skin to skin. I was like, let's get this cracking.
Mhm.
It's you and me now. This is your home. This is where you belong. And it does require, or I should say for me, it required uh, a lot of faith and a lot of prayer that the adoption would be finalized eventually, and also that we could give him what he needed. And I'm not talking about the financial things or the material things, but whatever that is, like I need to connect with you on a spiritual basis because to your point, you picked us for a reason. And so I need to figure out what that is.
Adjustment real quick. So now then, in that adjustment, and as we talk about, the way that adjustment happened so fast and what you thought it was going to be versus what it actually was, I would like to know now, Miss Leah, is it better to have beauty or be beautiful?
Wow. I think it's better to have beauty because being beautiful, at least how I interpret it, being beautiful is based on a state of attractiveness,
Mm-hmm.
how people respond to you. But having beauty, Like you can find beauty in acts of service, acts of kindness, acts of love. So having beauty is more than just how a person looks. When you have beauty, you encompass the like the very essence of what beauty is, which is beyond like just the way somebody looks. So
Mm.
I think that's better because that can happen at 80, at 10, at when you're sexy, when you wake up in the morning with, slobber down your, you can always have, you can always participate in acts of beauty.
Mm.
That's permanent as long as that is what's on the inside of you.
See, yeah, all right. So, um, now when you say acts of beauty, right? I think because this question is based upon the dynamic of having something and being something, right?
Gotcha.
And so when you speak of acts of beauty, um, to me what that speaks to is the being of something, right? Because when you're acting something, and when that means you're like embodying it, you're embracing it, you are making that what you are being or acting as come alive, right? And so what I heard from what you were expressing had a lot more to do with the activation of that thing that may be dormant, right? Because the potential of having beauty, everyone may have the beauty, but unless they activate it and then turn it into being beautiful, which has nothing to do with physical appearance, it has everything to do with which is coming out of that person and what is being received by those who have the great fortune of encountering it. Has That's when that person is being beautiful, and that's what those individuals become attracted to, right? Regardless of how whether they have one eye or half a tooth, or you know what I mean, missing a nose or burnt skin, whatever that may be. When they see the beautifulness of that person, all of that stuff fades to the side.
That
It's
makes sense. I see what your interpretation of it or how you explained it is more clear for me now. So then I would flip what I said.
Again, there is no right or wrong answer, because what you said had everything to do with what was just explained as well. So yeah, there's no right or wrongs. There just are perspectives
Perspective.
that individuals share. And so now the perspective that I would like to hear about is, Miss Martin, when was the last time you cried?
Wow. The last time I cried. Oh, I remember the last time I cried. So, it's interesting you mentioned the short film.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who I sent it to read. And the film, as you know, covers a serious subject. So I sent it to her to read, and she read it while I was on the phone. She was like, "Hold on, I'm gonna read it right now." I'm like, "Really? Right now? That's usually not how this is done." So she said, "Just hold a second." She starts crying because she had had a loss that had a wound that she hadn't dealt with, that's still healing. I shouldn't say you hadn't dealt with. It's just still she's still in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that was, gosh, like 2 weeks ago, because I felt bad that I took her to that space because I felt responsible. Um, and of course she's like, no, it's just that this is where I am in my journey. So I relate to it. And so that was probably the most recent cry that I've had because I was like, I didn't mean to do that. But she was like, no, it's not your fault. And I'm happy that you sent it. And So we moved on from there. But yeah.
Hmm. So then, would those tears that were expressed, if I'm hearing you correctly, about the retelling of that situation, were those tears of like guilt slash empathy slash like, um, yeah, I think I would just we'd leave it with those. Were they like tears of guilt? Were they tears of empathy? Were like what kind of emotions were embedded in those tears that were released?
I think a little bit of both, probably
Hmm.
more empathy, because again, it was unexpected. Because at first I was like, oh, she's really touched by the work, but then because it felt stronger than would be emoted from that, then I was like, no, there's something else going on here. And then I started to feel like I could hear her voice. I connected to that sadness
Hmm.
because I am a bit of an empath, which is why it's very good I never went into the field of psychology because I would be going home like, Jenny, I would be doing it every day. Like,
Hmm.
and, I take, so I realized early on in my life, like I have to make sure that I don't take on all the things that I experience through other people because that's not necessarily my job. And it's not always not helpful either because you don't want to be there crying and you crying on it, like that's not helpful either. So
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I've been coming across a lot of empaths lately, so it's like I wonder what that's also relating and showing me, right? Because yeah, I guess I do have a little bit of I do have those abilities to feel and discern and kind of read individuals and energies and things of that nature. And it's just like literally I've just been coming across like empath after empath. It almost to the point where it's like, oh, word. So now everybody's an empath now. Okay,
is
okay.
that the
That's
new
that's
thing?
that's the new thing. All right. Okay. Everybody's all into this to this new agey earthy empathic stuff. Okay. All right.
It
Um.
does feel like that sometimes because
Yeah.
my kids are Gen Z, so some of the things that about being triggered and anxiety, I'm like, why y'all got anxiety for real? Y'all got
Yeah.
anxiety? Okay. Yeah.
As the kids say, y'all be capping. Stop
Right,
capping.
right,
All the cool kids. No
right.
need to be capping. Um, all
My
right.
son's word too.
Okay.
Trash and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Uh, that was so. All right. So what we have learned thus far is that the idea of that you are a heart centered person, or well, no, you're kind of even keel, but that you're delving more and have found more heart centered approaches and welcoming that side of you more, or leaning on that side of you more. We've also learned that your idea of being beautiful or having beauty has to do with acting as such, acting as a beautiful individual. And then we've just learned that the last time that you cried was for it was a mixture of joy that somebody was reading this script and actually just said they were going to do it right then and there, and then the feelings that were emoted from that individual, you took that on to share in that space, to be there, to comfort, to aid, and to help them do even more work on what it is that they've been going through. And now, the question that is on the floor, Miss Leah, is what are three words or phrases to know in all languages?
three words to know.
Or phrases.
Phrases. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Hello. In all languages. Why those three words for you?
Hello, I think you should always know. You should know as many versions of hello as possible.
Hmm.
It's just polite to speak. Um, so I think that's important. And I feel the same way about thank you, because I think that acknowledging when someone pours anything into your life is important. I think that people don't even know sometimes when they do things, simple things, and that thank you could change someone, you know. Um, and then I think I'm sorry because I think that is I think it's very useful. I don't know. I think I'm sorry is something that people don't say enough of.
Mm,
And
really?
yeah, I think that it's very humbling to realize that you made a mistake, and you probably if a language is unfamiliar, you probably will butcher it, so it
Hmm.
would be nice to say I'm sorry for that. But yeah, I feel like I'm sorry would solve a lot of things, a lot of conflicts that escalate because people don't say I'm sorry.
Mm, interesting. Okay, I definitely hear you in that. Um, I would honestly, I sometimes I have a problem with people that say sorry too much, because then it loses the weight of the word. Some people be
Mm,
saying they sorry for stuff that they ain't really saying
they
they
ain't
sorry for. They're
sorry.
just trying to be, they're trying to be polite about it, and it's like, you're not really sorry. So like, don't even say that. Say something else, but don't say you're sorry, because then when you really are sorry, for me, I'm just taking it on for me. When you really do say you're sorry, um, that might be the time that I actually don't really believe you, because of how many times you've said you're sorry for things that you're not really sorry for, right? So it's like, it's one of those words that you should. I feel like you should really save for when you truly actually do mean it, as opposed to using it just to be polite in a situation, right? Because society has told you that we have to, just say you're sorry even when you're not sorry, because that's the nice thing to do, when it's not really um, the most, I want, yeah, the most
Accurate.
most accurate sentiment to share at that moment. I like that. Thank you for the assist with that accuracy. Appreciate it. That's why you write, and that's why I just speak. Um,
No, I could feel that. I haven't experienced a lot of that, honestly.
oh wow,
I
good for you.
Yeah, I experience a lot of people expecting, everybody is shaped by their experience, expecting you to understand what they mean, or,
Hmm.
interpret what their behavior means, as opposed to um, just coming out. And then a
Hmm.
lot of people wanting to save face, and so not admitting that they're wrong.
Mm.
Um, that's been generally my experience.
Got you on that. Yeah.
Because it's like an admission of, like, I did something wrong and I'm not going to admit that because everything I do is right. So therefore,
Well,
and that may be like a thing, just the people that I've been around, not necessarily close friends, but I have definitely seen. I've been in a lot of situations where a simple apology would
would have just
be,
went a long way, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do also find yourself in a particular world where there individuals are very egocentric, and very um, like nothing really exists outside. Like, yeah, everything does exist to aid them in what it is that they're up to,
Yes.
and to hear a counter narrative of that is like shell shocking and like unfathomable. So, yeah, I get it. I get it. Oh well. Now, we just learned about three phrases or words that you feel though you should know in all languages. And now, Leah, I would like to know, or not even I, we would like to know, what scares you?
What scares me? Climate change.
Mm, okay. Elaborate on that.
I just don't think that I don't think that there are enough people, and maybe I'm just not familiar enough, maybe I haven't dug in enough, but I don't think that there are enough people that are concerned about the way that we treat the earth and the things that we're doing, the chemicals that are put into the food that our children are eating. And I think that because it's something that people feel like it's so far off, that we can still operate in this way and treat the earth in the way that we're treating it, and there aren't going to be any long-term repercussions. So you do hear people talk about it, but it's not at the level. You also see things walk back that you're like, why would we do that? Like, why is that happening? So, why do you let a chemical company create food products? I don't, you know. So it's just like there's things that I'm like, ugh, that that bothers me just because there's so much beauty on the earth, and I just don't think that we always honor the planet.
Mm,
And I think that there are things that if we don't begin doing that, if enough people don't begin to do that, we're going to see more and more damage, and it's going to disproportionately impact people of color. They already said that in cities where there aren't as many trees, there's already a gap in how you experience climate change in a urban city versus a suburb,
mm,
because of the lack of coverage and more heat and lack of viable food. I mean, it's just like it's so that I think scares me.
mm. Well, I'll have to second that motion because I know when we was filming at your crib, that climate change and the way that heat was perspiring and transpiring on us.
I was hitting.
Woo! That valley heat. Oh my goodness! And I know it's only been getting hotter. Oh my goodness. All right. Anyway. All right. So we just found out that climate change is what scares you. And now, what is it that makes you happy?
So on the flip side of that are the young people. I feel like a lot of times you hear people talk, various generations. Oh, the young people, the music, I don't understand it, what they saying, and so there's all that perspective. But like this young lady, and I can't remember her name, so don't quote me, but this young lady who is in, I believe, high school and figured out how to recycle water recently. Like they are just doing these things that gives me that kind of hope and joy. Like, even my own children, the conversations that they're having, I'm like, okay, y'all are on some other, like, okay, you guys are talking about some like marginalization and some, just my son talking about, I think this teacher is culturally biased. It's just like there are so I'm like, okay, there's hope in that, like that things can turn around because they are tuned in a little bit more. So that same sensitivity of the maybe I'm an empath, maybe I have anxiety or whatever those Gen Z um that Gen Z has, they also have like an awareness, a level of awareness. And so I listen to them sometimes and I'm like, okay, yeah. So I get excited being around young people. And I recently read someone say that if you want to, learn and grow, make sure you keep young people in your life. And I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Mm.
Like, you can't think that you know everything. You don't. So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely a firm believer in the youth, and where and what and their ability to create and actualize change, and the change that they want to see. I'm definitely, and that's actually why in this second season I chose to start interviewing more youth, because just to hear and ask them the same questions that I'm asking you, and to hear some of the responses that they have given, and some of the solutions they choose to come up with in answering some of these big questions that are happening in the world. It's just it's so encouraging, and it's so uh, yeah, it's just heartwarming to know that there are youth, and I would say that it's more of the majority than the minority of youth who want to actually see real change happen, and want to be a part of making that real change happen, and not like kind of tiptoeing around it. It just getting straight to the root of the problems is something that I've experienced, being around youth and seeing how they get down and seeing their demonstrations, um, to make this world a better place. So when I'm an old decrepit man, um, I feel like I feel like I'll be a okay because these youth got it. The youth nowadays got it for sure. Is how I feel about that. So, Miss Leah, we have now come to pregunto numero siete. And that question is, what is your purpose?
My purpose. Wow. Okay. I believe my purpose is to use my writing to elevate voices of women and girls. Like, I feel like that is my purpose, especially women and girls of color. So I believe that when I write characters or come up with pieces, like that's the lens through which I develop my characters. So I try to think about who are the people that we don't see as much of and
Mm,
don't pay attention to as much, and we don't hear them say certain things as much. And so I believe that's my purpose.
okay. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's your purpose is to write stories and come up with characters who um, who are oftentimes left unheard,
Mhm.
if that's correct. Okay, that's amazing to know. Great to know. Great to hear. I will say that through my limited interactions with you, I have seen you, um, living and being in your purpose. And the reason that I can say that with a sense of surety is because I had the opportunity to literally see one of your pieces, come to fruition and be manifested, right? And that particular story, um, about about loss and relationship, about black specifically, about black loss and relationship that didn't have anything to do with violence or anything like that, and just the retribution and the consoling and the idea of what black love, looks like through working through a situation such as that, is definitely, I would say, a manifestation of you living your purpose. I would also say the way that, the conversations that we had about, about your son and being able to, play video games, and the things that he's, said to you, and the way that you were able to listen to some of the feedback and gain, some gems and jewels, in that, and in the way that you've chosen to advocate for your son, is another, iteration of you living your purpose, and showing that and showing up in the real world in real time, of you, being, living, and manifesting your purpose. And I would lastly say that even you providing me the opportunity to interview you after knowing me for 2 days, and trusting enough to not even ask me too many other questions about, like, all right, yeah, I'll do it this day, that time, is another idea, another way that you are living your purpose, right? By providing an opportunity to someone such as myself to be in your presence and ask you these questions that could sometimes be felt, or some individuals may felt may be pressing or too revealing, or an opportunity to be too revealing and reveal their true selves. I would say is another way that you have been living your purpose, and that I've been um, or that I've had the opportunity to bear witness to you living your purpose. So may you continue to do that, and be the most dynamic, radiant, and ingratiating um, individual that you possibly can be. So thank you once again for that. Um, and then, with that being said, Miss Leah, the floor is now yours. Please let the people know what you got going on, where you got it going on, how you got it going on, and how they may be in contact with you, young lady.
Thank you for the young. And I noticed that my sunlight is gone, so I'm sorry about that.
No
I'm
worries.
like, oh man,
You still got
that's
that glow. You still got
okay.
that glow.
Um, so what I have going on is Family Reunion dropped on Netflix just yesterday, and so it is our what they call part three, but it is season two. So, but that is the show that I'm currently writing on, and so I'm excited about that. As you know, the short film, we just finished doing that. And so that project, we will be doing the festival circuit and all that throughout the summer. We'll have a screening. So if people follow me on Instagram at Midwest Writer Gal, I'll be posting about that. And that is pretty much all that's out that is available to see. I'm always working on things, and I'm pitching, the things that writers do. I got a meeting. But as far as like what you can actually see, probably the next thing up would be the short. And then at some point they will release the next season of Family Reunion. So we seem to be doing pretty well. It is a kids and family, under the kids and family banner. So it's the kind of show you could watch with your grandma and your auntie and all of them, and the young people, and nobody's necessarily like doing anything that's rated R or whatever. But yeah, that's it for now.
Awesome. So be sure to check out Family Reunion on Netflix in the kids section. That is actually something when my daughter finally returns to be in my physical presence in space and place that we'll watch together. For show, for show. And I would like to thank you and you and you and all of you for choosing to join us here on the Human Experience. Capassion Action. I am your host, Hueman, aka Dynamism, aka